Oceania is interesting as the two halves of this region have very different church histories, levels of affluence, faith practices, and concerns. It includes Australia and New Zealand as one half, and nations of the Pacific Islands in Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia as the other. Like other parts of the world, Christianity came to Australia and New Zealand with European colonizers in the late 1700s and followed a similar pattern of oppressing local indigenous people. But because the rest of the countries in this region heavily resisted missions activity, Christianity's influence arrived in those places later. Eventually, services like education, peacekeeping ventures, and health clinics did arrive in this area alongside Christianity and were generally looked upon favorably. Christianity spread rapidly when Pacific communities embraced it and made it their own, even alongside Western influences. Today, Oceania makes up only 0.5% of the world's population, but 1.2% of the global Christian population. 65% of people identify as Christian, which is 30 million people. Oceania was 90% Christian in 1975, but declined to 65% by 2025. However, the demographics of Australia and New Zealand skew the data. The Pacific Islands have actually become more Christian at over 92%. 97% of Oceania has access to the gospel, and the region has the best religious freedom of all regions, with almost no governmental restrictions or hostility for any religious groups. If Oceania's 30 million Christians were 100 people, we would see a clear divide between the affluency in Australia and New Zealand versus the Pacific Islands. 59 of the 100 would have adequate access to doctors, and 59 to internet. Over half would live on over $100 a day, and would live in high development countries. 33 live in places of high gender inequality, a heart-wrenching reality given the complicated gender politics in the Pacific Islands, where violence against women and children is sadly common, even in these predominantly Christian nations. Diving deeper into two different areas, let's start with the differences between the two halves of the region. Similar to the global north, Australia and New Zealand have a rising number of people who identify as non-religious. People are leaving the church and their identification with Christianity. Any signs of growth that do exist are mostly because of migrants or missionaries from the Pacific Islands, or other places like China and Southeast Asia. In the Pacific Islands, however, the church is growing rapidly. For instance, Papua New Guinea was 4% Christian in 1900, but today is over 95%. The Pacific Islands would actually have the highest percentage of people in the world who are Christian. Church leaders in these nations seamlessly integrate Christianity with local dance, traditional dress, birth and funeral rituals, and philosophies and ways of thinking. However, ethnic and linguistic diversity across different communities sometimes leads to fragmentation of the church and occasional theological distortion. Second, all people in Oceania, especially those in the Pacific Islands, have been greatly affected by climate change. Many Pacific Islanders have been forced from their homes as climate refugees. This, though, has led to Pacifica theologians producing some of the most thought-provoking works on climate change, teaching the global church how to view the earth and our place in it. Though in a similar part of the world, the countries represented in Oceania remind us, maybe more than any other place, that no region of the world is a monolith. In fact, we can actually look at Oceania as a microcosm of the entire global church, with church decline and secularism happening rapidly in one half, and explosive growth of the church happening in the other. Studying what's happening in this region can teach us a lot about church trends and what's needed to minister well in a variety of contexts as we move forward into the future.